to the line, this is where the CRM ends, and this is where, for example, Sales Hub begins. That's also hard to point to. And I think that's what we're trying to get at, right? These are not like, the hubs are not integrations into our CRM. They are not patches or add-ons, really. It's all one system that we've built to be one system. And your level of access varies depending on your subscription, but it's all just HubSpot. And I think that that's what we're trying to get at with customer platform. The CRM is kind of the databasey foundation of it, but there's a lot more we've built into that.
It's funny, Kyle, when I hear you say this concept of like, imagine it without the CRM piece, like I kind of get sick to my stomach. Like the inefficiencies and inabilities to do almost anything and everything with all of the tools we use. If that wasn't there, like it literally, the CRM or lack of CRM would be the kryptonite to the superhero that is HubSpot in many of our lives. So like, please don't say that part again, because that was like, oh.
It's just like the floor falls out from under you, right? Like, imagine you're going to send a marketing email. Who are you going to send it to if you don't have a database of contacts, right? Like, and hopefully all of the systems and tools and features of HubSpot are tied back to those central databases, and to have them all be unified, right? When I first started at HubSpot, the CRM had just barely launched, and I was on the support team that was supporting it. And people would ask me all the time, how is the contacts database in the CRM integrated with the contacts database in the marketing tools? And the answer is, it's not. There's no sync. There's no integration. There's no copy paste. There's no parallel. It's just the same database. It's two different UIs, two different directions for accessing that same underlying set of data. And that is the promise of HubSpot. That is what we mean.
And I think we've had that for so long now that we're kind of maybe even spoiled. Like, we don't realize that there's so many people out there still trying to do business that's like a complete foreign concept to them. Like, you can't bi-directionally attach to your Excel spreadsheet, right? That's not a thing. Like, you can't hook into that from like different platforms. And it's funny because when we talk about this customer platform, like I've been the guy out there advocating like we've hubbed ourselves to death.
Yeah.
So when customer platform came along, I'm like, yes, can we stop talking about hubs kind of and just talk about customer platform? And it's one thing with a whole bunch of tools that everybody can use, because snippets aren't just for sales and templates aren't just for sales. Like documents aren't just for like, these are our service, marketing, sales, these are business tools to create a better customer experience. And now we can at least call it a customer platform.
Yeah. And I will say it is in some ways aspirational, but I feel like that keeps HubSpot honest, right? As we continue to grow, as our tool set continues to expand, we want to get more unified, not less unified, right? And I'm really excited. The thing I've always pointed to is like the collaboration sidebar in Marketing Hub, where you can like comment on your forms and your workflows and stuff. Let's get that into Sales Hub. Let's get that into Service Hub. But like deal approvals, I don't know if any of you noticed, that's that collaboration sidebar, right? It finally made the leap. It's in Sales Hub now. And so we'll get there, right? The march toward consistency is, I feel like so many systems as they grow, they get more disconnected over time. And HubSpot is hoping to do the opposite. We're hoping to get more connected, more seamless, more consistent as time goes on. And that to me is just so exciting. It's going to get better and not worse.
I'd like to revisit the original question, because a lot of what you guys are talking about are very, I'd say, internal, maybe functional definitions of what might be a customer platform. But Kyle, if I'm a business and I see the words customer platform, can you define it for me in terms of what I should expect it to do for my business?
Sure, yeah. I mean, your business, depending on the size, you may have individual people, you may have teams, you may have one person doing it all, but you have different ways you need to interact with your customers. There are marketing sorts of things where you're trying to attract these people and learn who they are and introduce yourself to them. There's sales sorts of things where you're trying to have a two-way collaborative conversation to decide if there's an opportunity to do business together. There's service sorts of things where you're trying to, for the customers you have, the people who've already sold to, keep them happy and help them grow with you. Then there's operational things and commerce things and lots of different things, right? And we want all those things, all those different interactive touch points with your customers to happen in a single system. All of the different formats and modalities that you use to communicate with your customers and your prospects, regardless of their stage and regardless of their relationship with you, we want all of that in one spot. We don't want you logging into different systems. We don't want you having to start the conversation over with each new phase. We want it all there. We want it all visible, and we want it all unified. And the promise of the customer platform is that, not just that in your underlying Smart CRM, you're going to have all that data recorded, but as your marketing teams are logging in, your sales teams are logging in, your service teams are logging in, your operations folks are working in the background, they are actually all in the same system, and all the tools they need are there.
So if I were to boil that down to, the place where customer processes start and stop for a business, and this could be open to anybody on the call, like what might we be missing? Because I've had a lot of people resonate with that kind of simplification, because, well, everything Kyle just said was pretty on point. It's pretty hard to explain all of that succinctly, consistently to business owners who don't know what the word touch point means and, things like that. So I'd love any thoughts on, customer process. That's our problem, right? Customer process and customer platform are about as general as it can get because we want to make sure we're including all of the things. But I'm just curious, like, if anybody else has a take on how we kind of simplify and bring that all together.
One of the things that, and yes, I'm going to kick this off. One of the things that I really, really want to see is, Cal, you know what programmable emails are. Chris, you know what it is. George, you know what it is. If you try to create a programmable email that hops over multiple relationships with association labels that you need to keep in mind, that is basically impossible right now. If we would just implement GraphQL for that, and keep in mind that in the programmable email, you have a field where you can say which GraphQL query do I want to select. You click on that and you get basically an error saying, well, go screw yourself or something like that. But in slightly different wording likely, but it doesn't work. If we get that to work, what we can do is we can create emails, either marketing emails or transactional emails, that keep the entire platform data into account.
Yeah, so it's funny because I agree with everything you just said, but I have to add a but in there because Chris started the question with, business owners that don't know what the word touch point is. If they don't know touch point, they don't know GraphQL. They're like, what the is that? And so the concept around this was like, how do you do, Willem, what you're saying, which is very complex actions, but in a very simplified way? Like, how do you make it where it's a couple clicks and a touch of a button to accomplish for that human that knows they need it, but have the technical gap to achieve it? Like, I think and by the way, historically, that's been the magic of HubSpot. Like the amount of things that they've enabled us to do that we have no clue how the frick we did it, like, is amazing, right? And that's what I think what we're doubling down with the customer platform.
George, this is where I wanted to pick up on exactly that point. So I've been a partner for 5 or 6 years. Love, massive fan, as you can imagine, being a reseller, and we use it every day. The biggest problem I'm coming up against now, we deal with a lot of B2B sales teams, and a term I've coined pre-tech sales teams, right? So this is people who are moving into HubSpot as their first CRM, probably, or They're moving from a copper or a pipe drive, you know, what you might regard as a step up to a customer platform. And the issue that we face all the time is confusion. People don't understand what it is we are selling. And I have two types of clients. I've got a client who's already converted, is an advocate, is a evangelist of HubSpot because they've consumed the content, they've watched Kyle on LinkedIn, they've done all the things, and they are raring to go. And then I've got another client who sort of like knows that they need it, they've got the problems that it can solve, but it's pushing water uphill in order to try and explain to them what it is we're trying to do. And that's exactly where we are at the minute. And as you can see, I'm quite old, a salesperson of many years. And I despair at some of the stuff I'm reading on LinkedIn in terms of what automation can do. You know, just because you can do it doesn't mean that you should be doing it. The insight and the analysis and so on. I sit there thinking with my sales director's hat on, you know, even if I had all that information, what would I be doing with it? even if GraphQL was put in, and Willem, please excuse me, I don't really understand that thing at all. But even if it was putting that stuff into email, does it mean it's going to work?
Tony, do you mind if I give an example of what it can do? Because that may actually explain what I'm trying to achieve.
For sure. I kind of got an idea of like sophisticated personalization tokens, as it were. You know, data getting pulled. Is that anywhere near?
Yeah, you can use whatever data you have in there, and to get back to your point, George, you can do it in about 10% of the time compared to writing it the way we write it now, and you need roughly 10% of the technical skills. Because all of a sudden it becomes basically getting the editor out there saying click, 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 I want that and that, and you just get the result instead of trying to write a query, trying to understand how the API calls should work and that sort of lovely stuff, which I'm sure that you would nerd out about. But I feel like I don't want to spend time on that. I just want the result.
Yeah, and this is it, Willem, isn't it? Your MD, your chief exec, I don't even care, right? Say with my sales director hat on, my MD hat on, I don't even care. You're talking to me and I'm glossed over, right? I just want to know. And I think actually the future of CRM is even more smart. Where it's going to get to the point where an end user doesn't have to know any of these things, and even doesn't even need to employ a partner, dare I say it, to help them build it, and so on and so on. Right? That's probably where you can see where it's going to go. Well, but the trick at the moment is that how can you sell a smart CRM when it's so complicated? How do you get the message across?
So I think, one, I don't know if there'll ever be a day where the CRM or HubSpot will be so smart that we as partners won't be needed. We will just have to elevate and graduate ourselves to the type of partners that actually can enhance what HubSpot
fair.
So here's the thing. It comes down to, and luckily I've been told that this is one of my superpowers, is we have to figure out ways to simplify the complex when we're actually explaining to these folks what it is. And one of the conversational narratives I've had around the smart CRM lately is this kind of 3-tier of an idea of automatic, automated, and augmented, especially now with the AI features that are happening inside of HubSpot. And so I get people to look at their departments and ask the question, what do we need to be automatic? What can we automate? And how can we augment the brain of the people in the departments? When you start to think about those 3 pieces and you break it down to goals, KPIs, and aspirational points, and you talk around those narratives on an individual company level, it's easy to make it real simple and straight into the point of sweet, this is the way that we're going to do this, and this for marketing, this, and for sales, this for service. And so finding concepts like that of this 3-piece conversation around things like either each individual hub, or in this conversation that we're having around the smart CRM, I think helps us simplify that conversation with potential customers.
One of the things that stood out to me, I think, listening to what Tony was saying. And then I'm finding this is a huge overgeneralization, I think, but like half of our company knows and lives in HubSpot. And it seems like there's a lot of things they don't fully understand about it for sure, but they also have expectations of it that are beyond what it's meant to do. And so when Tony was saying, like, should we do this? Why do we have this data? Just because we can't automate it, should we automate it? And then the other half of the company that doesn't spend all of their time in HubSpot drastically underestimates what it's capable of. And so trying to square that circle and meet in the middle somewhere has been a bit of a challenge. And I don't know that speaks super well to your question, Chris. But I feel like that's something that I'm constantly trying to navigate is how do I deliver the information on what it can do that we're not utilizing and get people who are maybe on the more operational side of our business to care when we're focusing on HubSpot as a customer focused platform. But then also, how do I get our director of sales to stop expecting HubSpot to give me numbers that an accounting software is supposed to be giving me, or whatever else it may be. And so I think the great thing, which you've all kind of touched on, is, and it is hard to keep up in the best way possible. Every day there's like a new thing that I never thought HubSpot would even venture to tackle. And some of that stuff is rolled out flawlessly and instantly impactful. And so I love to see that. But then again, I come back to, all right, how do I now educate the team, on how to utilize this or how not to expect too much of this, whatever that is. So
yeah, so it's funny, Cody. I have to brain dump because you're like, so it's funny because a lot of people will look at this conversation and they'll be like, yeah, this is a platform problem. This isn't a platform problem. This is actually a people problem. Like, how many people overestimate what they're worth, but how many people undervalue like the impact that they can put into the world? Like, we're talking about a fundamental mindset or mindsets that the humans might have. And so really it sometimes might be teaching them less about the platform and more about who they are as humans. And once you can unlock the human side of who they are and their potential, or the fact that they think that they're God's gift to the world and maybe they're really not in this scenario, now all of a sudden you can start to teach around the platform. I know that's a little bit like waxing philosophical, but like, we have to lean into the fact that sometimes we have platform problems and sometimes we have people problems. And the only way to fix the platform problem is to fix the people first.
What's a George B. Thomas conversation without some philosophical?
Yeah.
And to Tony's
I completely
point,
relate to what you just said, though, Cody. I like that's always been my issue is there's so much capability in HubSpot and there's so much I want to do and make things simpler and optimize processes. And maybe my team is on board, but they don't actually really know what it takes to get to what I'm talking about. And because there's that disconnect, they think they're willing to do what it takes to get there, to supply me the data that I need, or to add one step to their process. But when it comes down to it, maybe they're not actually willing to do that. Or maybe to them, Smart CRM means it's supposed to be doing it for me. Why am I having to do this? But it's like you said, it's like connect, like both of those sides of your business, if they're both needing to be in HubSpot, you need to meet them somewhere in the middle. So in a way, I feel like Smart CRM might actually mean dumbing it down.
Can I tell you a funny story? I heard this story in my high school physics class. My teacher was explaining to us why it's sometimes very hard to understand, weird physics stuff. And she said when the railroads were first being built in the United States, the steam engine came through this farming community for the first time, and a farmer came to see it. And he talked to the engineer. He's like, how does this machine work? And so the engineer explained in detail how a steam engine works and all the pieces and the mechanics of it. And at the end, the farmer said, I understand perfectly. I just have one question. Where's the horse? And I think as we talk to people about various things, whether it's philosophical things like inbound, whether it's specific things like a marketing email or it's conceptual things like a smart CRM, we a lot of times think we're explaining it very clearly, and they a lot of times think they're understanding, but we're actually not unified in our view of what is happening and what needs to be done. And so getting down to the nitty-gritty details, and I think focusing very much on what we are trying to accomplish and the best road and the reality of where we are right now, which is a hard thing for people to agree on. Then once you know those two things, the path forward is just hopefully the straightest line between them. But I think a lot of people don't understand what's possible or what's reasonable. They either underestimate or overestimate that, but they also misunderstand where they are currently, thinking everything's great or everything's terrible, when really neither of those things is ever entirely true.
Yeah,
Well,
and to those
sometimes they are, but yeah.
and to those points, like I'd love for to understand what you're seeing, Kyle, in terms of like as HubSpot makes these changes, as I'll generalize SaaS is wont to do. Like it's like we just don't care about what these words mean in other contexts in people's lives, right? So both Tony, Madeline, Cody all made the point that it's like when we see the word smart all of a sudden applied to the thing that, like, I think about smart lights in my smart fridge
Sure.
and all these smart devices and AI powered. If I'm using something AI powered and it's smart, I shouldn't have to do a whole lot to understand. I should just be able to do the thing. So that puts in my opinion, that puts even more pressure and more weight on the ecosystem, the leadership teams, the admins to just make the decisions of what HubSpot should be doing, for the company in order to create that environment. But just as you're seeing people like these responses to smart CRM and AI powered, are you seeing confusion like this?
Well, I think the word smart is really interesting, because you asked me to come here and join this discussion. I got thinking about the word smart, and I think it was probably introduced around the time of smartphones, right? And that had nothing to do with AI. We weren't even thinking about AI yet. I think smart just meant connected to the internet, right? And that's very different from what smart is starting to mean now. Now you can't help but say smart, and people, at least some people, will immediately think of AI. And I don't exactly know how or when that shift has happened or if it's been intentional. But in general, I think now when we talk about things being smart, we mean them having some component of artificial intelligence. But then that too, like, what do we even mean by that? There's machine learning and algorithmic things that have been around for a long time that we've called AI. And now suddenly, just in the past year and a half, we have a whole new world of generative AI and chatbots and things that is unlike anything we've seen before. And I think there's a lot of confusion about what is meant by AI and what its capabilities are, like we've kind of already talked about with other things. But I think also there are people who are really excited for all the opportunity and all the power that this unlocks. And a lot of people are very nervous about what are the implications. Can I trust this thing? If I turn over my business to an AI powered something or other, what's going to happen to my business? What's going to happen to me? I see Jeff Vincent here in the audience. I would love to bring him on just to share some thoughts about how HubSpot is thinking about our approach to AI, and just like there are lots of feelings around AI, and how are we thinking about that? How are we helping bring our customers along with us into this new future world?
All good, brother. All good.
That's amazing. I love that. So some of you probably know, a few years ago, I created a revenue operations certification course for HubSpot Academy. And my research for that was just interviewing operations folks and asking them what their job is like. And 100% of them said, well, there's the job I wake up every morning thinking I'm going to do. Man, I'm going to change the world today doing this thing. And then I get into work and I open my inbox and there's the job I actually have to do, which is fixing all these problems and doing all this admin work, right? And every operations person is looking to minimize that stuff, get their systems and their data into a place where they don't have to worry about it anymore, so they can actually start building the future of the company and helping it grow and achieve its goals. I don't think that's unique to ops people. It's a very similar story HubSpot told early on about marketers. Marketers want to do these great things, but they don't have time because they got to do this other stuff. And salespeople would love to sell, but they're only spending 20% of their time selling. They got to do all this admin work. Right? Seems like every person has more work that they could possibly do. And for whatever unfortunate reason, the menial tasks are the one that get all the attention and take all the time. And so if a smart system can do menial tasks, right, if we can be just smart enough to do that, then the human can focus on doing all the things that they got in their line of work hoping they'd be able to do, and go do some of those big aspirational things that have historically been out of reach.
Yeah. So here,
Yeah, George, go.
Yeah, go. Willem, me or you? Who?
No, you go.
So first of all, let me go back to Jeff's comment about we're all wondering what a world of AI content's going to look like. I have never been more excited. By the way, I'm always excited to speak at Inbound, but I've never been more excited to speak at Inbound this year around the fact the future of content, AI harmony, and human touch. Like that's literally what I'm talking about. And trust me, folks, it's all about the humans, right? Like it is all about the humans. That's what we're going to talk about.
Wow, this is a special episode.
Yeah, exactly. But what's funny though is my brain goes to, and again, we mentioned smart, and all of a sudden we start to talk about AI. I was teasing Kyle and Chris before this got started that Chris had mentioned something to me a couple weeks ago. My brain hasn't been able to let it go. And Chris asked me this real simple question of what if CRM didn't mean customer relationship manager, but meant communication and relationship management. And I was like, ooh, I would like heart that all day long, every day, because it is about communication. It is about relationships, because it's about creating these experiences for these humans. I also live in a world where I'm sick and tired of seeing every SaaS software and everything come out talk about being AI powered. It's human powered, AI assisted. Okay, that's the world that we smart people need to live in. Human powered, AI assisted. And so I actually there's an article that's going to come out probably next week where I've written, because of Chris, this article around what if CRM has been all wrong all the time, and now it's about communication and relationships and this human aspect. And so I went at this in a direction of what if smart CRM didn't really have anything to do with AI. Of course, AI is a assisted part of it. And so when I think about smart CRM, I think of the word simplified, multifunctional, automated, retention focused, and timely. So that's a smart CRM. Now, in the article, I'll actually go deeper into what I mean about that and what it means for sales teams, marketing teams, and service teams. But that's the focus. Like, bring it off of AI, bring it into what the humans can do with the smart CRM, and it's going to be easier to actually communicate what the frick they can do with it. Okay, I'll get off the pedestal.
No, and the reason I'm constantly thinking about word choice and nuance like that after working on the inside and now speaking to even more people, from outside their businesses, and kind of I've been positioning HubSpot as like the communication management platform, or the customer experience management platform, and trying to protect it from the CRMs that ERPs suggest they have. But then when I'm talking to a marketing and sales leader, this was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back on, okay, like, can people attach CRM to things they should not attach CRM to? And when I'm talking to a marketing and sales leader, and there's a B2B side and a B2C side that has Shopify just sitting over here with all this contact information in it. And when I ask why it's not integrated with HubSpot, there's a concern of like, well, we don't want those to be marketing contacts, right? And there's this thought that CRM is supposed to be the place for marketing and sales people only. And it's like, as long as that's the case, like, that's why I've said, hey, maybe, like, my post was, if we called it this, like communication and relationship management, then can I bring all the humans into this system? Because it doesn't have to be sales or marketing. It's about relationships that we need to manage across all these different channels we're working in. Right? Because previously it was like, oh, that's supply chain, or oh, that's purchasing. Why would we bring those emails in? It's because you're having to forward those emails to sales anyways, so they can talk to customers. So why wouldn't we bring them in? And it started to dawn on, like, because we have these preconceived notions or all this baggage around these words that we use.
So I want to jump back in here for a second, because that is, Chris, that's making me think of, as you can imagine, inside of HubSpot, I'm going to give you a little inside baseball. Hopefully Kyle will cut me off if it's not useful, but there's a lot of people who are very excited specifically about AI, chatbots, and chat entry, and what if your whole CRM experience was just a text box or something like that. And so as we're thinking about the future, there's these memos that get created that are like, here's what we could be doing with AI, and here's how it could solve all the problems. And the response from our chief product officer, Andy Petrie, who you might have seen speak at Inbound before, that just blew my mind, was he referenced something that Jeff Bezos has said in the past, which is, when they're thinking about long term, they're not thinking what's going to change. They're thinking what's not going to change. And what's not going to change is that end customer loves being treated like a person who's having relationship with your company, and that relationship is what drives retention and what drives future purchases. Whatever your business model is, it's important. And it's increasingly important today when people's expectations continue to go up. So having that data that you're talking about in the CRM, I was talking last night about connected apps, and being able to have, for example, UPS data sitting in your CRM. Now, you're not going to natively store that. You're going to pull it in, and then we've built tools to do that, so that a service person, somebody whose customer success has nothing to do with shipping and delivery, but that they can see that package is delayed. They can see that package is set to arrive this afternoon, whatever it is. They can use words with the customer that make them feel like, I'm not just talking to somebody who doesn't care about me. I'm talking about somebody who has like the power to change things, somebody who actually cares about my experience. And so the fact that that's how Andy is thinking about this stuff is, start with what won't change, and then let's figure out how to use data and the future of AI models on top of it to make that experience even better. That's where I hope HubSpot is and continues to be in the next couple of years.
I love that, because humans are going to human, plain and simple.
Well, and Jeff, I think what you said, and then in kind of conjunction to what Chris was saying, being able to look at the platform in a way that, I guess, being able to see the platform grow and what it's able to do, and seeing everybody else acknowledge how much love and care and time and attention is flowing into HubSpot from the people who are building it out on your guys' end, makes it really easy for me, and I'm going to steal this phrase from Chris, makes it really easy for me to ask, okay, well, why are we trying to fit all these other systems that we don't like as much, that are not as user-friendly? Why are we trying to fit HubSpot into their gaps? And why aren't we starting with HubSpot and trying to fit these crummy systems into the opening that HubSpot makes for us? Like, why are we focusing on the ones that suck and not the ones that work well, instead of the other way around? And I think I mean, and I don't always have an answer to that question when I'm talking through that, but I think being able to challenge our folks to think about it that way. Why are we bending for this crappy platform instead of making this crappy platform bend for the one that we like and that serves us well? And so that's been a pretty I think, revolutionary mindset shift, even in just the last couple weeks for our leadership team, getting them to think about it that way instead of the way that we've always had to think about it, because we're like, well, we have to have accounting, so we just got to have we have to have stuff that works with accounting. Well, why don't we have accounting that works with stuff?
Well, I appreciate hearing that, and I think there are still plenty of friction points around achieving that. Chris tells me about them all the time. I've got teams that are focused on solving those. Let's continue to stack rank them. Tell me what's really causing the problem for either your customer or your leadership team to get excited about that, and let's go to work on it. The one other thing I was going to take the opportunity to say on this call, and then I promise I'm gonna stop, is I think all that love and attention that we are bringing has one downside, which is we just want to add. We just want to add and add and add. And the customer platform has gotten, I'm going to admit this, hopefully you can bleep this out, Kyle. Sometimes we get a little overcomplicated, right? We get super myopic about solving for a very specific customer need, and we forget that adds complexity for every other customer that touches the system. And the thing that I'm pushing on now, and I hope to get there, is let's create a world where Ops has a view, which is the full data platform. They see all the data that's on system. They see where it's all coming from. They see the lineage of it. They can work on the quality of it, connect it to the right places. But as a rep, when I go into the system, I experience something that's crafted for me. I think we have a lot of work to do there. A lot of teams that need to work together to make that happen. But that is where I think we end up, where as a rep, it's really easy to discover it. And as an ops person, it's really easy to control what you see and what your team sees in terms of the total customer platform. That's it for me.
Jeff, I love to hear you say that, because custom views based on teams is a start to that. But the fact that you guys are thinking deeper into that, like layers that we can put on that, is amazing. By the way, Cody, I can't go past this without telling you, when I heard you say that last little bit that you're talking about, I literally heard my accountant's voice going, whoa, whoa, slow your roll, Cody. Like, because accountants, they want to just do the accounting. They don't want things to change. Like, so we're from the other side trying to change things. And listen, this is from a guy who has like forced my accounting agency to try to love the, QuickBooks like integration of HubSpot. But it was like pulling hair and like pulling teeth and hair. Like it was a moment, but they're coming along, right? But most accountants are like, this is my little thing and this is what I do. And change is hard for anybody.
And that's where, like, I hope, and part of our goal with this hug and a lot of the stuff that I'm trying to enable around education, customer platform, is to empower, people like Cody to say, like, can we at least have that moment? Can we just talk about this thing? Because when you tell me that you're communicating with the customer when they get a notification email about they haven't paid the invoice, like, and it's automated and not like, that's not communication. Just because we're sending the email doesn't mean we're communicating, with customers. And what's interesting is, like, again, once it starts to click, things like that, there's a lot of accountants and finance people that love HubSpot because it's infinitely better to reduce, like, the collections load when you communicate that easily out of the gate, and it's aligned with what the sales team is saying, what the customer success team is saying. Now all of a sudden their work gets way easier, all the visibility goes up. But it does start with, like, we always have to address, why the hell am I trying to what HubSpot? Like, that's the marketing tool. Like, why are we talking about invoices?
Don't even get me started on that. But
do you have that table, Kyle? I think you were prepping it for inbound. That table where you just had all the objects, laid out.
Yeah.
Because I think that, there's so much to be said about the objects conversation.
I think open somewhere.
And that's what I kind of got Jeff on this call for, like, because I think a lot of the Smart CRM, and when I talk to all the different product teams and we're trying to implement AI, and it just goes so well in some spots, but then in other spots like brand voice, let's say, it's kind of like a black box that's sitting in settings. We can't touch it. It looks very much like a property, but it's not a property. This morning I had a crazy idea, like what if when we were creating properties in the CRM, there was a spot to like say, I want AI to help with this property. And like, this is the prompt I want to, I want it to see every time when stuff gets filled in. I think that infrastructure of objects and the world of everything being an object, like now we have a smart, like that's like final phase smart CRM because we have complete control over our data set. We know exactly what's coming in and out of our system. It's very easy for us to explain the smart side so that leaderships can be comfortable like creating this setup and then have their teams using it and know that their teams using it is not inherently creating risk, right? All these questions start to come up. And so I thought this might be a good foundation. Hopefully it doesn't scare the crap out of anybody with all this stuff on here. But this is like, how do we, like at the end of the day, this is the complex system that has been created for us that can be so powerful. But how do we take this information and understand the current state, where the team wants to go and kind of explain this to people? Because without documentation like this, we have a data model overview that doesn't have any of the Commerce Hub objects on it, right? So there's lots of tools inside of HubSpot, but trying to find this balance to empower, the HubSpot champions to kind of bring it to the rest of the organization in a less frictionful way. What kind of feedback did you get to this, Kyle, when you first asked for feedback?
So I'm sorry, first of all, if this is a little too small to see. I can't figure out how to go into present mode in a PowerPoint and share my screen in Bevy. So this is as big as it gets. But in general, I think there's just a thirst for clarity. A lot of us who work in and on HubSpot all day, every day, like to use a word like object, like that means one particular thing. But it's not exactly true, right? There is definitely variation across what you get with things that are object-like, which ones you can build workflows on versus a report versus what you can use in forms or import. I feel like this table is kind of an eyesore. It's a lot to take in, but people were really excited to get it just because here's everything all on one page, right? And it's funny, I created this maybe a month ago, and I've already had to update it at least once because things are changing, right? There are stars going in places where there have been lines. And so HubSpot will continue to evolve. And things like this, like our data model and consistency in features is something a lot of people at HubSpot are thinking a lot about. So I expect charts like this to improve over time. But I think for someone who's just trying to get their feet under the technical definitions of what's in HubSpot and what supports what features and that sort of thing, this is hopefully helpful. But again, too complex for the business owner who doesn't want to talk about touch points.
Yeah, this is for the HubSpot nerd, not the average bird. Like,
absolutely,
let's throw that out there. I mean, and the fact that you have to probably update it again because now lists and workflows are objects, and who knows what that's going to equal in the future. Like,
sure,
it's ever evolving. But I love to see this chart. The thing that I've even asked some folks on like the deep insides of HubSpot. For every one of these objects, I would love to see a page that talks about every default property and definition of what the property does, because that's literally the Super Mario cheat code to filtering and reporting and understanding like what the HubSpot engine is doing under the hood. And there's quite a few of these objects that don't have that that beautiful page, like contact default properties, company default. Like, by the way, these are Google searches that I love doing and giving people links to, because when you take the time to like read that, your understanding of Smart CRM, understanding of HubSpot hubs, understanding of what's capable for your business, 3, 10, 50x the time of what you once thought it was.
I also just want to jump in and add, I think you would be surprised how helpful something like this can be for even teams that this isn't their job. I remember distinctly, and some of my old coworkers would bring it up like probably 5 times after I did it, but I literally just whiteboarded out I was trying to explain to them like, okay, the deal pipeline, like we need to decide if a contract is going to get approved before the deal is closed or after. Like you guys need to decide, because otherwise we have no objective data point. Like we need to know when the deal is done. And until I wrote it on the whiteboard and literally like wrote like a line, I think they always said like, you drew that line and then I got it. I understood that like you weren't just saying words, like it was an actual thing that you were trying to get us to decide on. Like visuals like this, even though they might seem complicated, I think it does kind of help make it click for people. Because I think a lot more people are much more like visual learners than they think.
Sure. Well, and also, I mean, George talks about Googling standard properties, right? There is a HubSpot knowledge base that lists all the standard properties for contacts. It would take you a week to read all of them, right? Like the list is just endlessly long. And so figuring out how to condense it down into something people can digest quickly is a big battle too. I just dropped in the chat. Someone say that. Yeah. I just dropped in the chat. I teamed up with a HubSpot support rep, and just today we published a cheat sheet of properties, and we highlighted for all the major object types the standard properties we think are most important, the most common custom properties we see HubSpot customers using. We were able to get an analytics team here at HubSpot to pull that data, yeah, it's a lot of the battle is helping people understand what's there. I would love to see the line you drew on a whiteboard that made it click for people. Because we need, I think different people approach this from different ways. And it's amazing to me how sometimes someone will just explain it in the way that makes sense to them, not knowing if anyone else will even follow, and then realizing, oh, that's how other people's brains work too, right? Like, oh, now I get it. And we all just need to share with each other.
Dude, I love this PDF. I downloaded it already, by the way. Went to LinkedIn, clicked the link, downloaded it. This is cool. Good job.
All the exclusives today.
Right.
So what makes a smart CRM smart?
The people supporting it. That's the answer.
Yeah. The humans.
That's it. Honestly.
Oh, I love it.
Without
That's great.
It gets very complicated and dumb and doesn't serve anybody, very quickly. And like, to those points, it's like we always play this game, or, for me, it usually resonates when I tell people like the HubSpot admin, like you try to achieve that point where it clicks for the person, like why HubSpot is a good thing in their day-to-day. And it's different for everybody. Does it have to be different for everybody? Do we have to treat it like, we just got to catch everybody in that moment in time where they're open to it, and we just happen to draw it in the right way or say the right word? Like, we've got all these different people in the ecosystem building these resources in silos, and at the same time finding different ways to explain different things, which can have a way of complicating, delivery in itself. So a lot of what we're trying to accomplish, again, with this hug and with this increased cadence, thanks to Kyle's inspiration of just getting out there every day, like without this cadence, like Kyle's just one post. Now we have this channel that we can share it on again. Now it gets exposed to more. Without this cadence of customer education or education around the platform, which HubSpot can't do all on its own, like we're never going to cross this chasm of, point solution to customer platform. But that was a great question to end on, Tony. But I'm curious, was that answer from Kyle? Like, I thought it was pretty satisfactory. It's the people that make a smart CRM smart.
And wouldn't you say it is filtering
Are you asking
down?
me, Chris, if it was acceptable?
Yeah.
This
No,
whole
it's
test
a
was
great.
just for you, Tony.
Yeah, well, it's about time, frankly. It's a great answer, isn't it? It's a big question. It's almost like Zen. The way we understand the smart CRM is by not understanding the smart CRM. I just love it. I love the conversation. Thanks, Kyle. You always help.
Oh, appreciate that.
No, it's for sure.
What were you going to say, Willem?
I would say, isn't the smart CRM able to filter just the information out that you want? Isn't that what makes it smart? So that you will have a simpler CRM to look at while you have more complex underlying data.
Simple was the S in George's SMART acronym. So I think that.
Yes. No, I agree. I agree that, but I still think that's like a phase 2. You have to decide what you want first, which can only come from the people, at least until you have years worth of data. And then maybe AI can help you figure out that part too. But, we start with just like, all right, I'm going to start playing with these filters. And then, I can't see this. I'm going to build these properties. And we just start from that other place where the tool, we want it to do it for us so much. If we don't tell it what we want it to do first, that's an important piece, and only the humans can do that, at least right now. So this has been an awesome conversation. Thanks so much, Kyle, for really what you do every day. Definitely an inspiration for this hug, for sure, and a lot of the videos and shows that are popping up all over the place on LinkedIn. And thanks for stopping by and giving us, your take and hanging out for some deep conversation today.
Thanks for having me. I enjoy this, but I will hasten to say I could not do the work I do every day and take all the credit if people like Jeff weren't doing their work every day and making HubSpot the machine it is. It's truly an incredible platform built by incredible people. And so there's something new to talk about every day, and I'll keep talking about it as long as they keep building it.
Love it.
And if you like what you heard today, and if you're watching the recording and like what you saw, next month, August 28th, one Jack Coopersmith is joining us to talk about the difference between Smart CRM and Hubs, and we'll see how successful he can be in that conversation. But hopefully we lay this foundation down for people, customer platform, and we can just keep building on that. So until next time, everybody have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.